Welcome everyone to another Zoom production of the Dearborn Heights Libraries. Today we have Katie Farrugia, who will be giving us a taste of Asia. Katie is a vegan cook and the founder of ZENutrition. Since its start in 2012, she has provided plant-based meals, catered events, and taught workshops. She aims to create food to nourish people in mind, body, and soul. Katie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you to Caroline Kennedy Library for having me again. Typically we have these in person and I can cook and share my food with you, but times being as they are, we have to join virtually. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm actually joining you from Turkey today. So I'm traveling and I'm on the southern Mediterranean coast in a small mountain town called Farrugia. It's really beautiful here, so the Wi-Fi connection could be a little spotty. So we had a little bit of a challenge trying to find the perfect spot where we could get a good signal today. So today I'm going to talk about a little bit of my travels and food to kind of make it a little bit interesting since we can't eat together. So I'll be sharing some stories and then talking a little bit about the cuisine and my experiences with the food there. Because as a vegan, it can be really challenging to find food when you travel. So, so I'll kind of highlight that, and then also some of the flavors that you can incorporate into your dishes at home. So I will prepare this little presentation, and I'll share this here. So typically I like to have kind of an open format, kind of a casual dialogue. So I think I will highlight 4 different countries, and then at the end of each country, I'll kind of open up the floor if anyone wants to unmute and ask any questions or share any of their experiences maybe with any of these places that they've been that they would like to share. That would be great. So let's start this presentation. So Rob did such a great job introducing me. I'll just talk a little bit more. So I've done a lot of different things in my professional career. It took me a little while to really realize my passion for cooking. So I kind of stumbled upon it in the way that I lost my job in fashion, and then I had the time to really explore what I wanted to do, and cooking was something that I came upon, and this is something that stuck with me. And as a vegan, it can be challenging to find good food. So that's what inspired me to start cooking and start experimenting with different flavors. So I'm not a classically trained chef. I just am fueled by passion, and this is what I really love to do, and to share this food with other people, because I feel like that's how I can really share and encourage this lifestyle to other people. If you give people delicious food, then they will be more likely to adopt a more plant-based diet. So another one of my passions is traveling. So this presentation kind of combines 2 of my passions. So the last about 2.5, 3 years, I've spent mostly in Asia. So I did a little bit of a career detour, and I started teaching English overseas. So I started teaching in China. I taught for a year in China, and then just last year I was teaching in Myanmar in Southeast Asia. So during both of these times, I got to travel both within the countries that I was living in and throughout Asia as well. So eating a lot of food, obviously, and I think that culture and to get to know about the people of that area. So that's a little bit about me. I found this quote from Anthony Bourdain, and I think it perfectly encapsulates what I want to capture in this whole presentation. Is food is everything we are. It's an extension of us. It's your personal history, your region, your tribe, your grandmother. So I think, especially when we're trying to encourage people to eat more plant-based, this is, I think, why it can get tricky, because food is how we identify. And it's a part of who we are. It's our grandmother, it's our, it's our ancestors. So I think that, yeah, by looking at the cuisine, then we can really get to know a culture that way. So I'll start with our first country is China. So I lived in China for a year, and China is just such a massive country that even in my year there, I didn't get to travel extensively. I did north. So I'll speak to a few of the places that I've been and my personal experiences there and my experience with the food. So as a vegan, I would say China is a tricky place because meat seems to find its way into everything. And even if you ask for something with no meat, there will be little bits, and a little bit for them is okay. So traveling in China as a vegan or vegetarian, you want to be really careful. So like most places in Asia, rice is a staple of the diet. Barbecue places are really popular. So you'll see a lot of street vendors with just a grill, and these are actually really great for vegetarians because you can find just skewers of vegetables or tofu, and these are really great. So yeah, like I said, this Chinese food tends to be very meat heavy, so it can be a challenge. And I put a few, I don't know if you can see my cursor on here, but I put a few, these are typical breakfasts in China. All of these are little baozi is what they're called. And they're like steamed dumpling, not even dumplings. They're kind of doughy. It's more of a dough on the outside. So some have meat, some have like a red bean filling, which is sweet, and they have some vegetable ones. So these are great for breakfast. I would just usually pick up a few on my way to work, and they are usually they're in these steamer baskets, these bamboo steamer baskets. So these are really good. And then down this porridge looking thing is called congee, and it's just a rice porridge. So this is pretty good as long as you get sometimes they put like some meat on top. So these are kind of some standard breakfast things you'll find for breakfast in China. So I would say a lot of Asian countries tend to have more savory things in the morning, soups and kind of warming things like that. So, and then some typical seasonings that you'll find in Chinese food: soy sauce, garlic, ginger, chilies, fish sauce. I'll talk later about how you can replace fish sauce, and then MSG. So I'm sure a lot of you have probably heard MSG, bad. So we tend to find MSG. It's monosodium glutamate, and it's found in a lot of processed foods. Not the best health-wise, and you can actually buy it. It looks like almost looks like a sugar, kind of it's white, like white crystals. So it's pretty much just put in food to enhance flavors. So I think you can leave it out, no problem, but it tends to be in a lot of Chinese cooking. So this is exactly what I said. So here's some typical breakfast in China, and then these fried dough sticks, youtiao. And just the other day in Turkey here, they made a version of these. And so I think this tends to be pretty standard in a lot of different cultures. And even in the US, we call them donuts. So they're kind of different versions of the same thing, fried dough. I mean, who doesn't love fried things? So a few places that I went in China, Guilin. So Guilin it's along the Li River. So this landscape is just breathtaking. They have these limestone mountains, and it's iconic landscape that's actually on their 50 RMB note on their money. So one thing that is in Guilin is the rice terraces. So because they have all this rice in the area, their specialty is rice noodles. And you can find them everywhere. So at the restaurants, or even just little sit down eating at the side of the road on sitting on a bucket. But they're really delicious. And when I was in Guilin, it was December. It was really cold. So yeah, you can see us down in the corner. We're literally just sitting on the side of the road eating some rice noodles. But you can see the landscape is just beautiful. And this is a really, really great place to visit. And another place I visited, this is probably my favorite place that I went in China, is Chengdu. And Chengdu is in the Sichuan province, so you can kind of see on the map there. And Sichuan is known for their spicy food. So Sichuan peppers are famous there. And they have a really unique flavor. They almost have like a spicy and almost floral taste. So it really gives a unique flavor to the dishes. So I will share in a little bit a PDF file that I made. I have recipes and tips and some of the things that I'm talking about here, and also a link to where you can find these peppercorns. But I know that there is a quite large Asian market on Telegraph and Joy Road area. It's really quite big, and they have a lot of things. So I think if you're looking for any kind of ethnic flavoring Asian spices or something, that's a great place to look. So back to Chengdu. So it's noted for their spicy food and also pandas. So they have this panda reserve and research center and breeding center. So that's kind of an interesting thing to see. But we're here to talk about food, so spicy food. And one of their big things is hot pot. And hot pot is a pot of broth, essentially, with some oil, some chilies, lots of chilies. It's really spicy. So this is actually kind of a whole gathering. So you can see from the picture, usually there's, usually there's always meat and some vegetables, and then you put it in the broth and it cooks it up. And it's meant for a whole group of people. So it's kind of a whole gathering. Like that's your evening. You would go out and have hot pot with your friends. So this one, unfortunately, I didn't I didn't get to have in Chengdu. I couldn't find a vegetarian one. But while I was in China, I did have a coworker who so kindly made me a vegan hot pot, and it was delicious. So if anybody has ever been to the melting pot, I believe, it's the same kind of idea. The hot broth, and then you cook the different things in the broth. So um, this is something that's really, really known in that area in the Sichuan province. And probably my favorite thing is because of Chengdu's proximity to Tibet, and some of you may or may not know, Tibetans are primarily Buddhist. So because of that, there tends to be more of a Buddhist influence in Chengdu. So you can actually find some vegetarian places. And one of my favorite experiences, probably ever traveling, was going and having lunch at a Buddhist nunnery. So it's called the Ido, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the Ido nunnery. So every day at 11, they open it up for people. You can come and just have lunch. So it's just, I don't remember, it's only a couple dollars. You go and you get a bowl, and then they say some prayers, they do some chanting, and then everyone just kind of eats in silence. Then you line up and you clean your bowl and you go. So it's a really special experience, and so that was something that's really unique. And another thing I did in that area was there's a Buddhist mountain. So there's 4 sacred Buddhist mountains in China, and Emeishan is one of them, which is right outside of Chengdu. So along your climb to the top, there's lots of different monasteries. So you can, for me, the hike took about 12 hours. So the first day I just hiked as long as I could until it was starting to get dark. And then you can just find a monastery, maybe only $5, and you get a vegetarian meal and a bed to sleep for the night, and then you can carry on your way. And then you can see this little like statue at the top. This is right at the peak of the mountain. So I got there right before sunrise. So it was a really special experience, and also one that was filled with vegetarian foods. So the monasteries are all serve vegetarian food, and it was really cool that the monk who could actually speak a little bit of English, which was surprising to me. So we chatted, and I ate some rice and vegetables, and um, so yeah, really, really beautiful experiences there. So on to cooking, and I also took a cooking class there. So typically when I travel, I like to take a cooking class there, and I try to search for specifically a vegan or vegetarian one. That was not available here in Chengdu, but they were able to adapt the recipes a little bit, and I just sat out the meat dishes and they cooked them. So one of the dishes that we made, so this was a really cool experience also. It's called chili cool. And I'll have the link in the handout that I give, just in case anyone finds themselves in Chengdu. So here's one of the dishes that I was going to make. This is called Po Tofu. So this originates in Sichuan, so it's quite spicy, but I think you can really do a lot with personalizing this dish. So traditionally, this is made with silken tofu. Um, Silken tofu is very soft and can be difficult to work with. So it's cut into cubes. So if you're going to use silken tofu, I would cut it into larger cubes. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with a whole big mess. One tip that they taught me also was to put it in your pan or your wok, put the tofu in and cover it with just enough water to cover the tofu cubes. And then heat it up till it just starts to bubble, and then strain it out. And doing that is supposed to help the tofu hold better together in cubes. But still, you're gonna want, when you're stirring, you're just gonna wanna stir gently so you're not breaking apart all the tofu. Personally, I think this would be really great with firm tofu as well, and it would be a little bit easier to work with. Oh. So yeah, so I'll send the recipe in the notes. Just the recipe I give is the recipe that they gave me, so it's not vegan. They have chicken flavoring powder, but that can easily be omitted and the flavor would be just as good. I also will give you the link to get the Sichuan peppercorns. And yeah, I think you can really customize this dish a lot. You can, I think broccoli or fresh green beans would be really good in this dish as well. So you can get creative with this one. And you kind of will have to, because I think in the recipe they don't give amounts, they just give a list of the ingredients. So you'll have to use your own creativity on that one. So that's China. So I'll open up the floor. Does anyone have any questions, or has anyone been to China and want to share anything? You can unmute yourself and yeah, know what? Okay.
Katie,
Yes,
your cooking class in Mandarin or in English? What language was it in?
it was in English. Yeah. So it was yeah, I would say that it was, the area I was in was tourist friendly. There's a lot of tourists go to this area, so yeah, it was in English. But the language barrier can be tricky in China, and I think that's also what makes eating vegan there a little bit tricky. Yeah, great. Okay, anything else before I move on?
Did you visit the panda
I
sanctuary?
did, I did. Yeah, yeah. And I thought I put pictures on here of it, but I didn't. So yeah, I did. Honestly, parts of it looked like a zoo, and I wasn't crazy about that, but they do a lot of research and breeding, and they do a lot of good things for it. So it was interesting to see anyways. But yeah, I did go, saw the baby. The panda nursery was really cute. Okay. All right, so I'll move on to the second country, Vietnam. So I did not live in Vietnam, but I spent about 3 weeks traveling through Vietnam. So I started in the south in Ho Chi Minh City, formerly Saigon, and then I made my way up north to Hanoi. And I really liked the food in Vietnam. So rice is, again, a staple there. A lot of rice fields in Vietnam. The food in general, I would say, is not too spicy. They do have some but not typical seasonings, garlic, onions, scallions. As most Asian countries, soy sauce is kind of like a stalk. It looks like a stalk. It smells very fragrant, and it really adds a really special flavor to the food. So I want to say that there is a Vietnamese place in Dearborn Heights. Maybe it's on Joy Road, and tell it's yeah, it's strange how. Okay, so we're recording again, yes? Okay, we'll go back to my screen. Okay, so I believe I was talking about banh mi, which is like this sandwich, and this can be found at a lot of different roadside stands. Typically, it's made with meat, but this could be easily veganized by using tofu. Okay, so just a moment. Okay, is the screen up? There we go. Okay. Okay, so is that I went because I took cooking classes there, so that's why I wanted to highlight them. So Hoi An was one of them. It's in central Vietnam, and it's a really big tourist destination, but it's also kind of in the countryside as well. So it's a really interesting place. You have the beach, you have the town with all these colorful lanterns, and then you have the countryside. So this was one of my favorite places. And I took a cooking class in Hoi An that I found on Airbnb. So if you have never used Airbnb, it's actually, you can find things other than rooms. So now they have experiences, all different things from like cooking classes or hiking tours or yoga, and just a lot of interesting things that you might not experience through a big group tour or something. So one that I did there, I did a tour of an organic farm and a cooking class. So the owners of the organic farm did not speak English, so my host was a young girl, and she spoke very good English, and she took me to the market and talked to me about all the different ingredients, and that's one of my favorite things to do, to see all the different ingredients. And then we toured the organic farm. We went on a bamboo boat down the river, and then we cooked lunch, and we made one of my favorite dishes that I'll highlight in just a minute. And then also I found on Airbnb another experience with a girl and in her home. So this was less of a cooking class and more of just like cooking with a friend. It was really special experience. She also, we met at the market and we got the ingredients for our dinner. And then I just went to her home and we cooked together, and her husband helped us, and her daughter came. You can see in the picture here. So both really special experiences, very different. And we got to talk about food and life. And I think that's what travel is all about, in my opinion. So this was one of my favorite things that I ate in Vietnam. Honestly, I don't know how to pronounce the name, so I'm just going to call it a Vietnamese rice pancake. And this is really simple to make. So rice flour can pretty much be found anywhere. So I think this is great because these aren't really exotic ingredients. You can find rice flour probably in any like gluten-free aisle of any supermarket. So the thing with this, you want to really get the batter thin, because you want it to be a thin pancake. And then and it's really delicious. So typically it's served with rice paper. So rice paper looks like a clear disc. And then you put it in warm water and it softens. So you can kind of, like you see here, I'm snipping the rice pancake into pieces. So you would take the rice paper, put in the rice pancake, and then add some fresh herbs, some bean sprouts, roll it up, dip it in a sauce, and it's really delicious. So this will be included in the handout as well. So that is Vietnam. That was quick. So okay, so country number 2 finished. Does anyone have any questions or want to share their experiences from visiting Vietnam? No? Okay. Okay, so I'll carry on with country number 3. So this is probably a lesser known Asian country, Myanmar, or Burma as it was known for years. Quite honestly, I'm not sure when the name changed, but I know some people still call it Burma. So it's right next to Thailand. And Myanmar is very special to me. I lived there just last year. I was teaching kindergarten at a school there. So Myanmar, I think, is a really special place. It's a country that was closed off kind of to the world for a while. They were under military rule. It wasn't necessarily safe. They didn't really welcome foreigners for a long time. So there's not a lot of Western influence there. And so their culture is really intact. And even within the country, they have different nationalities and different languages and different food, different clothing. And it's really, really interesting place. So again, they eat rice most every meal, I would say. Their cuisine tends to consist of curries. Their curries are a little bit different than like a Indian curry or a Thai curry. It's not quite as creamy. They have a lot of noodle dishes, salads, a lot of really good salads. However, meat heavy, I would say. So it was tricky. I learned the tatalo is vegetarian, so I learned that word really quick. And typically in Myanmar, if you say vegetarian, it's also vegan because they don't have a lot of milk or cheese. Same with China as well. And there's so many just little roadside places and tea shops. So tea shops are really kind of something to see in Myanmar. There's so many of them, and you'll just see, so tea is a big part of their culture there. So yeah, so like I said, they have over like 135 recognized ethnic groups. They each have clothing, traditions, foods, languages. So I really found it refreshing to kind of step out of that Western culture that seems to have invaded. I found China was actually, you know, there's so many American chains there now. So in Myanmar, not so much. And I found that really refreshing. And here are two dishes. A tea leaf salad on the top. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And the bottom, these are shan noodles. So it's like a rice noodle and then with broth. Some you can get it with broth or without broth. And this actually is really delicious for breakfast. And there was a tea shop across from my apartment, and you can get a bowl of noodles for about $1. And it was it was my Saturday morning thing for a while. And Mandalay, this is where I lived. So it's located in the center of the country. So it was the former royal city. So there's a palace in the middle, which is pretty cool. And then there's a moat around the palace. So you can kind of orient yourself in the city by where's the moat, which side of the palace is it, which side of the moat is it, and it's really cool. It's not too big of a city. There's not too high buildings. It's kind of a city that feels like a small town. And so most of my, I would say I mostly did my own cooking in Myanmar. I found my favorite dishes and the dishes that were, you know, safe for me to eat. And then I kind of tried to recreate those at home. So there's a lot of great markets in Myanmar. There was just behind my apartment a night market. This picture on the top is the night market. So every night they're out there and they sell fruits, vegetables, also tofu and fresh noodles and tea leaves, fermented tea leaves, which I'll talk about in just a moment. And yeah, you can pretty much find everything there. So for the first couple weeks, I was going to the supermarket, and then I found this market. I thought I can get everything here, and yeah, it's really just something to see and experience, and it's very hectic and it's very crazy, but it's an experience. So this is, yeah, I mentioned the salad. So tok is salad, and green tomato salad is something you can pretty much find at any tea shop. This was one of my favorites, and I think this is a pretty easy one to make at home, especially now that tomatoes are in season. So I just recently learned that there are specific green tomatoes that are green when ripe, but you can also just use an unripe tomato, and it will just be more firm and more like tart, which works in this dish. So this dish, you add some sesame oil, some soy sauce, some garlic, some onion, and scallions, and peanuts. And it's really good. I like to eat it with rice, or you can just eat it like that. So yeah, this is one you can pretty much find everywhere. And I didn't talk about my favorite one, is a tea leaf salad. So I thought I had it on here, but I think it's on the handout. So tea leaves, so this is one of the only places where they drink tea and they eat tea. So they take tea leaves, the whole leaf, the dried leaf, and then it's fermented. So they ferment it with some oil, I believe they use lemon juice, and then chilies. So you can find either sweet or spicy pickled tea leaves. And these you can find anywhere in Myanmar. I put a link in the handout of an online place you can find them. And you could probably make your own as well. I haven't tried it yet, so I guess I will, I'll try it and I'll write about it and let you guys know. But this is something, so typically, these tea leaves are served at the end of a meal. So it's served with some fried beans, peanuts, chilies, and typically dried shrimp. So I just would have them leave off the dried shrimp, and it's so delicious. It's a really unique flavor. The tea leaves are spicy and salty and bitter and sour, and it's just like all the flavors in one. It's really unique. So my favorite thing to do was to add these tea leaves. On their own, they can be a bit much, so I would add them to rice, and I would just make my own tea leaf rice, and this is what I ate for lunch pretty much every day. And I created my own recipe that I put in the handout, so you can see that. And that's all about Myanmar. Okay. Does anyone have any questions, or has anyone been to Myanmar?
Katie, I have several questions for you.
Yes,
You
yes.
mentioned rice being a staple there. Is it always white rice, or did you ever try to find or served brown rice?
Yeah, that's a good question. I find it is always white rice that's served, typically. But in the markets, you can find brown rice. So when I make rice on my own, I would make brown rice. But yeah, I think I always saw white rice at the restaurants and the tea shops, and my students would bring white rice from home for lunch. So yeah, it's typically white rice, but you can find brown rice as well.
And then concerning the markets, now the night markets, do they tend to be more prepared food and people go out and then they eat and consume the food there, as opposed to, say, a morning market? They would have the produce and then people would take it home and cook the produce that day. Is that a distinction between the day and night markets?
Yeah, I would say they have both. They have both. This was the one near my apartment was a very large market. It went for, I think, 4 blocks. So one block tended to be fruits and vegetables, and then you could find like tofu and noodles over there, and then over here was, yeah, places where you could buy food already prepared and just eat there or take to go. So yeah, you could find a little bit of everything. It was a really big market, and I would say for most markets that I've been to, you can find both. You find ingredients as well as some prepared food. So
And then I'm also wondering, the produce that you would buy, you need to clean it, and I'm guessing the water is not potable in many places in Asia, how you would clean your produce.
yeah, I just so I would get, yeah, filtered water, big jugs of filtered water, and then I would just soak it in a little bit of vinegar, put a little bit of vinegar and water and just soak it. And I never had an issue, knock on wood. I've never gotten food poisoning. Um, I did get dengue fever, so that's a whole other thing. That's mosquitoes, but um, yeah, so a little bit of vinegar and everything was fine. And
And
towards
did you ever
yeah,
get sick eating street food?
I I haven't, luckily. However, I don't eat a lot of street food because a lot of it does tend to be meat, and so no, I haven't, but I tend to be a little bit careful with that. So
Thank you.
yeah. I've been lucky. Thank you. Good questions. All right. Anyone
Katie,
else? Yes, Rob.
um, I noticed in a few pictures, I didn't see any cars. How's are there many cars there or is it far less than other places?
That is a good observation, Rob. Yeah, you're right. There are not that many cars. So in Vietnam, Myanmar also, especially Myanmar. So the import tax or the taxes on cars tend to be very high, so people can't afford cars. So everyone drives motorbikes. Most everyone drives motorbikes. Um, People who have money drive cars, but yeah, that's a good observation. It tends to be more motorbikes. China, people drive cars, but yeah, Vietnam, Myanmar, motorbikes everywhere. So I did not drive a motorbike because I was just too nervous. It was there's too many things going on. So yeah, good.
Is there a lot of people on regular bicycles too?
Not too many actually. So it's mostly motorbikes, and it's not like there's a bike lane. In Myanmar there's not even really sidewalks. So it's, I would say, not the safest place to ride a bicycle. But you could. I had a coworker that rode his bicycle to work every day. So it's doable, but I don't think it's preferable. So
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, good questions. All right, so we'll carry on to Thailand. All right, I think maybe a lot of people have probably tried Thai food before, and Thailand is probably some of my favorite food I've eaten. It's delicious. Um, so Thailand, I think a lot of people are visiting Thailand now. The tourism has just exploded. Um, So Thai cooking tends to center around 5 flavors, so sweet, sour, salty, creamy, and spicy. So the secret of a good dish is a balance of all of those flavors. So typically for sweet, you add a little sugar, sour, some lime, salty tends to be, they do use a lot of fish sauce. You could just use soy sauce to replace. Creamy, coconut milk, and then spicy, some chilies. So that's kind of how you can achieve these 5 different flavors. So the typical seasonings, coconut sugar, coconuts are everywhere there. Thai basil, which is a little bit almost sweeter than regular basil, but I would say it's not too easy to find Thai basil in the U.S. So you could substitute regular basil as well. Tamarind, which is a little bit sweet, lime juice, lemongrass, ginger, soy sauce, fish sauce, um, coconut milk, and Thai chilies. So Thai food it can be pretty spicy, but usually they're willing to work with your spice level. If they see you're a Westerner, they will take it down a notch. So curries are common there, and what makes Thai curries unique is the addition of coconut milk. So it has that creaminess to it. And in most places, I would say they put fish sauce in the curries. So it's important to really distinguish that you are vegetarian so they don't put the fish sauce in. Um, And here are a few dishes. So on the bottom is mango sticky rice. And it's really delicious as a dessert or even like breakfast. It's really good. Spring rolls on the left there. And then there's a curry on the top. So these are some of my favorite dishes. And there's a really good Thai restaurant in Dearborn Heights also. Bangkok 96. If you guys haven't been to it, you should go. It's really good. And pad thai. I'm sure everybody's maybe you heard of pad thai. It's a noodle dish, which typically has egg, but I would say you could replace the egg with some maybe crumbled tofu. And I went to Thailand quite a bit, especially over the last year, because I had to renew my visa, so I would hop over to Thailand. One of my favorite places, though, is in the north of Thailand, Chiang Mai. So it's a pretty fast-growing city. It's the second largest. The city itself is full of, there's so many temples, but then the countryside is not far, and it's lush and green and beautiful. And there's a lot of elephant sanctuaries. So this, I stayed at this really cool place with tree houses in just about an hour outside of Chiang Mai. And uh, and then this is where I took a cooking class. So it was really nice because this was a specific vegan cooking class. And it was a restaurant also. So it's May KD's cooking class and a vegetarian restaurant as well. And also, I went to this night market and had some of the best food at this vegan stall. They had this really delicious pomelo salad. So pomelo is similar to a grapefruit. So I put a link to how to make this salad. It's really good. It's unique. It would be really good for summertime as well. Something different. So chili paste is, I thought instead of doing like showing a curry, so just simple, a chili paste, because this is kind of the foundation of a lot of Thai dishes. So if you have the chili paste, you can make a lot of different things. So this is in most Thai curries. You can make a big batch of it. I haven't tried freezing it, but you probably could freeze it. And then when you feel like having Thai food, toss it in a dish and make a curry. So here are, there's different types of chili paste. So red, green, depending on what kind of chilies you use, and then the tom yum chili paste. So kaffir lime leaves, which I know probably are difficult to find. You can find them online, I'm sure. Galangal, which is very similar to ginger. I would say you could use ginger and it would give you the same flavor. Lemongrass, onion, cumin, miso, which is fermented soybean paste. You can find it pretty much anywhere. Chilies and garlic. And you can do it old school and, and mash it up with a mortar and a pestle, or you can probably also blend it up in your food processor. So, wow, that's it. So that's everything I have today. So I really, I feel like food is what connects us all, and I'm really passionate about sharing food with people, sharing meals with people. Everybody eats, everybody has something that's important to them in terms of food, and when we share those things, we can find this common connection, and we can bridge these divides that seem to be so prevalent in our society today. So that's all I have. So thank you guys so much. Well, first of all, questions. Thailand. Questions or comments? Has anyone been to Thailand? No? Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and then share this file. So I think I can just share it in the chat box. So this file has the recipes that I highlighted, some tips, some just fun facts, and there's a couple substitutions. So I mentioned fish sauce tends to be in a lot of things. So you can just substitute soy sauce. One tip that I forgot with Thai cooking. So there are both light and dark soy sauces. So the the tip that was given to me is to, oh, Randazzo, thank you. Yeah, you can find a lot of things at Randazzo. Thank you, Rita. So Randazzo has the kaffir lime leaves. Thank you. So yeah, you can mix light and dark soy sauce, and it will give you like this depth of flavor that's really good and will substitute for the fish sauce. So that's all I have. Thank you everyone for attending live, and everyone who's watching this, the replay. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm always so honored and so grateful to share my experiences and just to talk about my passion. I could talk about food all day. Um, yeah, any last questions or comments, concerns?
Well, thank you, Katie.
Great. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful job.
Thank you. I look forward to another time where we can be together and we can actually eat food.
I'm sure we can work
That's
that out.
that's my favorite part, and it's
Yeah,
missing. All right. Well, thank you, Rob, for having me again. I really appreciate it.
our pleasure.
Right. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you, everyone, and hope
All
to see
right.
you at the next Zoom meeting.
Yeah. And then, so just a quick question. Did the PDF file show up?
Yes.
Can you guys see that? Perfect. Okay, yeah, so that's the handout I was telling you about. So great. And then I think my website is on there. If you guys have any questions about anything, you can find me on social media, or I think my email's on there as well. So thank you again. Bye-bye.